That was so fun to talk with Sonia. It's amazing, this 19-year-old woman, how intelligent and how already emotionally
Mm.
intelligent she is. And it seems like a lot of that goes back to some great things that her parents did, right? And then just what she did with that from going on. So amazing to talk to her.
Yeah, it gives me hope. It gives me
Oh,
hope,
yeah.
hope for the future. I mean, you hear Marcy and I like banging our heads against the wall talking about social emotional learning and why it's important. But when you see children growing up with it in the household and how it's making an impact on her as a 19-year-old, already done a TED talk, already has a business, right? Like it's
Yeah.
it's for real.
You see it in
So
action. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it doesn't mean
People.
that everything's perfect and easy. Like
Oh,
she does in her TED talk, she talks about this problem that, communication wise with her parents. But what it did mean, the way she was raised and what she learned is that she had the skills to then be able to talk about it with them and have a better relationship. So more of that.
you learned some basic communication skills from this teenager,
Hmm.
which every person listening, I'm sure, wants to hear about. So make sure you listen in and grab those little tidbits.
It's going to be awesome.
The world is a lot right now. Are you feeling it? We all need new tools to help us walk through the chaos with grace, ease, and compassion for each other and for ourselves. In this podcast, you'll hear from parents, educators, and other experts who can bring perspective to the monumental job of parenting. It's time to level up and be warriors for our kids and our communities. This is the Warrior Parent Podcast. I'm Marci Mitchell.
And I'm Debbie DiManno. As parents, we understand that it really does take a village to raise our kids. We hope that this podcast serves to create and support that community for you. Join us as we discuss and practice our core tools, which are proven mind-body techniques that can be used by anyone to improve your life on a daily basis.
Welcome back to the Warrior Parent Podcast. We're glad that you're joining us as always. And today we're excited because we're reaching out to more of the younger generation. We talk to a lot of experts. We talk to a lot of people, and often women in the more aged group, the more elders, the wise elder group, which is wonderful. But we love to connect with youth as well, and so today's a great opportunity for that. And we are welcoming Sonia Suthar, and she is the founder of Cloud9, which is an online experiential learning platform that helps high school students build real-world confidence and capability through execution. Her work focuses on leadership, emotional intelligence, and entrepreneurship, supporting teens through practice, feedback, and community, while guiding parents on how to foster growth through collaboration rather than pressure. That all sounds amazing. We're so happy to have you here, Sonia.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Oh my goodness. Okay, where do we start? So, Sonia, just a little bit about Marcy and I. So, about 2017, almost 10 years ago now, I had some teens of my own, teenage daughter. She was having some issues, and we were beginning a nonprofit. We were maxing out on our big careers, or kids are out of the house, or whatever we were doing. We needed to do some purposeful work, so we started these workshops, and they were for teens, believe it or not. And a lot of the things that you talk about in your TED talk, which we'll talk about later, were things that we thought were important to talk about with our teens. And we're certain that we're completely aligned with everything that you're going to share with us about, about communication gaps, all the things. So anyway, we're super excited to have this discussion with you. So give us a little background on how you became so passionate about this topic.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, as everyone, we don't have the perfect childhood. There is no such thing as the perfect childhood, and
Mm.
parents are learning for the first time how to parent. There's no perfect book. Like you can build a scooter and there's a manual, right? There's no
Mm-hmm.
manual for
Well,
how to
okay,
actually parent.
wait a minute. She's just starting off giving us some grace. Like, come on. Like, you're a teenager. You're supposed to be, come on, parents, like, get it together. But here she's giving us grace. Like, yeah, it is the first
We
time.
appreciate it. We'll take it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course, because I need to learn that. That was the biggest thing that I needed to learn. I
Yeah.
thought my parents had to be perfect, right? Because I looked
Mm,
up to them. They were like the biggest
Yes.
influence in my life. But
yeah.
one of the biggest things that I realized, especially like graduating, was that my parents aren't perfect and they're trying to be perfect, but
Yeah.
giving them that grace that they aren't perfect is so
Mm.
helpful because then you can learn to actually help them and guide them as long as they're open to.
Oh
Yes.
man, we
And
love
that's
everything you're saying right
yes.
now.
And that's the key, right? As long as
Yeah.
the parents are open. So
Yeah.
that's a big thing for Marcy and I. Like, can we just stay open and listen to our kids? Like
Stay open.
it's really that simple, but you'd be surprised. There's a lot of parents that are not really as open as
Yeah,
as we
and
hope
part
for.
of that is their upbringing because our generation was told to be maybe not exactly in these words, but the idea was the parent has to be perfect, you have to do it right, and you never show any vulnerability or weakness to your kids because now you've sort of toppled yourself and they're not going to believe in you anymore. When of course the opposite is true. When we are open, when we're authentic, when we're vulnerable, now we have trust. We've created a place where we can both kind of meet instead of feeling the pressure, which is a word that you use. So I love exactly how you put that. And perfect is bullshit. Like it doesn't exist. So
Totally.
Totally.
yeah. How did you end up doing a TED Talk? That's a pretty big,
Yeah.
and this is the topic. So I feel like we're right there on what you learned. How did you end up doing that? Like that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, so back when I was building Cloud9 in high school, I really wanted to make it super successful. But one of the hardest things, right, is to gain credibility, especially when you're young. And
Mhm.
so one of my mentors, I was talking to her and she's really good at marketing, and she was like, "Well, maybe if you get on a TED Talk, then this would be really good because you're a really good speaker in itself, and I know that you have a message to share."
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, this sounds really good. I was like researching different TED Talks, trying to see like, okay, how do I do this? Where do I go about it? And then the craziest thing happened. I go to a very interesting high school. It's an AI powered high school, and we're
Oh.
getting a lot of, yeah, we're getting a lot of marketing right now. And they wanted to host a TED Talk. And it was like so crazy because like then both of us were kind of just like combining into like the perfect path
Yeah.
for me.
Hmm.
And I applied and I got into being on the TED Talk at the school. And so I was the senior who did it and represented my high school. And then we had like really young kids. They were so adorable, like 10-year-olds do it too. And it was so
Oh my
interesting to
gosh.
see like, yeah, what they talked about, how they did it. And
Oh,
that's how I ended up doing the TED Talk. And I knew
I
that
so want to
parents,
go back and listen to that whole
yeah.
session now.
Listen to the
yeah,
little kids. That's incredible. That's a lot of pressure, actually. Trying to pull that off. You got like 12 and
Hmm.
a half minutes or whatever you got to do. I mean, that's
And you
quite
did a
something.
beautiful, beautiful job,
Yes.
by the way. We'll make sure we link that in this episode so people
Yeah.
can go and watch that TED
Yeah.
Talk.
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
You talk a lot about emotional intelligence or EQ, and I want you to define that. I think a lot of people don't understand that. There's a
Hmm.
lot of misunderstanding about EQ right now. People are like, "Oh, you can't learn it. You're just born with it," like that sort of thing. But I imagine
Hmm.
that's not exactly what you think because you have something to do with teaching that or helping to support people with that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Totally.
talk about that.
So, emotional intelligence for me, and I think that we can all have different definitions, but it does kind of run around the fact that it's how can you understand your emotions, regulate your emotions, and then use like going through the daily life, being able to master your internal state, right? Because there's so many external things happening from like driving on the road and dealing with traffic to maybe like having a really tough exam and it didn't go so well. And so being able to understand your emotions, know what they mean. I mean, from a young age, we like learn like what is mad, happy, sad, what are those? But then like actually being able to identify when you're in that moment and being like, oh, I do feel mad, and not just like going straight to the reaction, right? There's
Yes.
like
Hmm.
that response where everyone like gets it and then they want to respond immediately, but taking that second to not just feel it, but then take a moment, reflect, and then respond is so
Whoa.
valuable. And that's the core of
Yeah.
what emotional intelligence
Wow.
is.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow. Wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow. You could teach
Yeah.
some people, some older people, some things about that. But
Yeah.
okay, so here's my next question. So Marcy and I, because we're doing all this training, we got certified in social emotional learning. And so we were on this venture to go out and get into schools and teach social emotional learning because we were certified and we knew what we were doing. And do you know how many schools we were shut out of? So I'm curious, did you learn this on your own from your parents? Or did you have some sort of social emotional learning at the schools that you attended?
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of a couple things. Right. My parents are definitely one of the bigger influences. They were really into personal growth. So Tony Robbins is a huge influence in our family. Like I went to
Mhm.
an event when I was 11 years old. My dad was
Wow.
playing cassette tapes of Tony Robbins' Personal Power every single day. We didn't listen to music, we listened to Tony Robbins cassette tapes.
That's awesome.
Okay, that
Yeah,
explains a lot right there.
yeah,
Yes.
Yeah,
totally. And
it
then
really
like
does.
also, I mean, there's this statistic that Tony Robbins talks about of like you are the five people you hang out with. And this strikes so true. And my best friend taught me what emotional intelligence was and how it was influenced because she was the type of person who went through a lot of hard things that made
Mhm.
her need to reflect and understand like bullying and like knowing like you have to separate that. You can't necessarily have that hurt your worth, but really understand that that's not who you are and just being able to understand that from a different level helped me.
Hmm.
Mm. I
Wow.
think growing up in Austin, a lot of that is so relevant based on that community and what do they value. And so Austin, we know, is a more progressive community. And so they're valuing that emotional intelligence, the classroom. I grew up in Southern California. I was going to school in the 70s and I had emotional intelligence in my, third grade, fourth grade. I remember that specifically. And Debbie grew up in the Midwest. That was not something that was put into her curriculum. And so, and then that's somewhere we see some of this distrust in some of these places. What is this, this namby-pamby bullshit in the school? We just want to teach math and science and not understanding that, first of all, being afraid of something we don't understand, and then not understanding how fundamental it is to learn these things as a child, so that you don't have to get your ass kicked out there as an adult. Like you've come in with these goals already, or with these understandings and this. I mean, how many adults know to say, when something's really big happening, whoa, let me take a breath. Let me sit with this. Let me have some curiosity. That is such a key knowing, a key tool for living a more centered, joyous, connected life. But a lot of people don't learn that. Some people don't learn that ever. But if we were
Mhm.
teaching that to children, like if your dad playing the cassettes, that's fantastic, because then you learn that, and now it's been said to you. Sometimes we need things to be said and laid out clearly, and then you
Mm.
get to try it in the world, because we all know what it feels like when someone says something awful to you and then you just respond or react in a just non-thoughtful way, just I'm mad and now let me show you all my anger in this explosion, versus, ooh, let me breathe, who's that about, I need a few minutes, let me think about how I want to respond mindfully. It's just amazing, and well done to your parents. Shout out to your parents, and then for you
Mhm.
too, to be able to then understand that you have this, and bring it to other people, which that's what you're doing through your Cloud9.
Yes, exactly. So as a teenager, being able to understand, okay, well, looking back, what would I have wanted to have as a younger teenager? Because
Mhm.
I mean, the Erickson's seven like stages of development theory, he talks about how like when you're a teenager, you're trying to figure out your identity, right?
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
so hard. Like trying to figure out
Yeah.
who you are as a person is
Yeah.
the most insane thing, and you can't even grasp it because you're never actually going to know who you are to the
Yeah.
fullest, but you can just find pieces. And so just having that emotional intelligence and then understanding how to use it and how to use it with like leaders and talking relationally with other people and being a leader is so important. And then
Mhm.
being able to have these skills that are so kind of like around entrepreneurship. I mean, financial literacy would go into that box, but it's not
Yeah.
necessarily anyone who like wants to own a business can just utilize these skills, but every teen needs to know these things because
Yeah.
that will help them level up. And as you were saying, like the education system is so outdated. It's been there for like 200 years and we haven't updated it, it's the craziest thing. And so being
Right.
able to like teach these life skills to teenagers and not only teach them, but give them a community to surround them
Yeah.
with.
Yes.
That
Yeah,
Yes.
belonging, yeah.
you talk about that in the 6 month life skill program that you have, and I wanted to ask you a couple of things about this. So, you talk about public speaking, as you suggested. You talk about financial literacy, teamwork, leadership, but you mentioned AI. So
Mhm.
tell me about that, because Marcy and I are actually struggling a little bit with that one right now. We're in the
Hmm.
process of writing a book, and we're really struggling on this one. So talk about how you incorporate AI into your protocol for teaching teens.
Yeah, so I mean, as you guys probably know, like this is the craziest time for AI because everything's booming. And AI isn't necessarily replacing the job market, but it's changing it, right? It's reshaping the labor. So you're not necessarily losing jobs, you're just having different types of jobs. And a lot of
Hmm.
people are afraid, but being able to understand what it is, how it works, and like a simple level. You don't need to understand, like, I went through a course in college about like the nitty-gritty of how AI works, and
Hmm.
it's very complicated. But being
Yeah. That
able
sounds
to,
awful.
yes,
We're too old. We're too old.
Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah.
totally understandable. But
Yeah.
being able to like understand AI is not just a Google search, but it's like a personalized platform where you can ask it questions based on who you are, and then you can get answers. And
Yeah.
then you can help. AI will never be able to replace human connection. And you guys have
Right.
experienced so many connections in your life. And those are the most important things, right? When you look back and you remember these moments, it's not like me watching TV or like being on my computer. It's like having those laughs and spending time with others. So the best thing about AI and the thing that everyone should really understand is how to make your life more efficient. So if you're
Hmm.
all constantly like trying to like look through your emails and things like that. There's an AI that looks through all your emails and then it can tell you what you need to do and create a to-do list. That's the
Okay.
kind
Now
of thing.
that sounds good. That
Yeah.
sounds good right there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I need that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have this funny little example. I don't want to interrupt you, but my husband has this big company as the secretary, and her job, one of her jobs is to go through his email.
Hmm.
And it has been a fight for 5 years. They've been doing this 5 years. And he finally just got after her and said, Jamie, you have to do this. You have to learn, because he's all into AI, right? And so he said, just do this and it will tell us what emails I need and which ones I don't. And like it's you'll do it in like 5 minutes. And so she still was resist. So my daughter, who's a little older than you, is very much into AI. So she sits down with Jamie and does this, and she's like, oh my God, like she's so like, oh my God, like I have all this time to do all these other things.
Yes.
Otherwise, she's sitting
Yes.
there going through emails, right? But yeah, it's like this thing that we can embrace it, but it's scary. It's scary for
Yeah.
old people like us. So but I
Totally.
imagine it maybe is it scary for some young people too? Because they're worried about their jobs, like you say. Is that right? Is that most of what you see?
I think it's scary for everyone. I think there's like this theory where some people are super excited and they're early adopters. They're going to be like, yeah, like let's do it. Let me like harness it. And then some people are
Yeah.
going to be like, well, wait, there's a lot of limitations. There's things that we need to be worried about. And so
Right.
approaching it with a mindful perspective, right? AI
Yeah.
does hurt industries and AI is not entirely the most healthy thing or sustainable right now. And so being
Right.
able to understand it from all these different perceptions, right? How is it affecting me? How is it affecting my loved ones? And then how is it affecting the world? You're going to
Yeah.
be able to have this wider perspective and you're going to be able to utilize AI, but also have that empathy for people who are afraid. And I think that's the
Yeah.
beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so
Yeah. That's amazing.
we're gonna get into the nitty gritty now. So communication with parents and teens, right?
Yeah.
So so you talked about this. You gave some statistics about like this gap of where parents think, oh, like I'm doing this with my kids, and kids are like, no, you're not. Like that's not what you're doing. So give us a starting point for communication 101 with parents and teens.
Yeah, so communication one-on-one with parents and teens can also be translated into like a mentor mindset in the way that first define your role as a parent, right? You want to
Hey, it's Marci from the Warrior Parent Podcast. I just wanted to share with you that we have some changes coming up. We are shifting from doing our podcast every Thursday, as we have for the past 2.5 years. We're moving as of February to a every other week format. And that's because we are working on our first book, which is a big lift, and we love doing it. But we just have a limited amount of bandwidth, and we are trying to take care of ourselves and our sanity. So you're going to see us every 2 weeks, every other Thursday for the Warrior Parent Podcast. And then stay tuned for our new book, which will be coming out sometime in the future. These are such challenging times. We're happy to share them with you, to walk through some of the things that you are walking through as a parent, as a human, as a woman, as a man, going through all of the things emotionally and sometimes physically, and just trying to walk with our heads held high, with our vision, our values at forefront, and staying awake and aware and doing what's ours to do. So keep joining us, and we look forward to talking with you and some of the fantastic guests that we have coming up. I will see you on the Warrior Parent Podcast.
Your intention is out of love, right? You want them to be
Yeah.
successful and happy, and however your kid thinks that they want to be successful, right? But at the end
Yeah.
of the day, you just want your kid to be happy and fulfilled. And the best way to do that is to not control your kid. And okay, so what does that mean? And the and how that translates for me is asking questions. Instead of
Mm,
telling them what to do, asking questions. It's that coaching, like strategist mindset. Like the billionaires, the people who are most successful in business have strategists. They don't have people telling them what to do, but they have people asking them questions so they can find the answer. And then when
Yeah.
you do that for your kid, then your kid will be able to do that on their own. It's the difference between a coach and a therapist. Therapists usually tell you what to do and you talk about your problems, but coaches guide you and ask you questions so you can really find those answers. And there's a place and time for both. But when you approach parenting, you really want to be the one asking the questions so they can find their own answers instead of you projecting answers. Because
Yes.
everyone has a bias. Even if you think that you're doing everything right, you're still going to have a slight bias and you're removing the autonomy that kids really want. David Yeager
yeah.
says this, right, in the book 10 to 25, which is an amazing book for parenting, for mindset, for mentors,
Mm,
anything like that. And he says from the ages 10 to 25, teenagers this age really want status and respect, and they really want autonomy. And when they feel threatened in any type of way towards that identity, they're going to retaliate. And
mm-hmm.
if you tell them what to do, you're not giving them status. You're not giving them respect. You're assuming that they're helpless and they're going to start acting that way.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Oh,
Wow, wow, wow. You
wow.
said a lot right there. And we know that that period from 10 to 25, like the brain is cooking. Like that's when it's like so much is happening. It's so formative
Yeah.
and it's not really done. I mean, it's never done, but the building of the brain is not done until 25. So like those are your years. Like that's the magic years to do your very best. Like you're going to be a parent for a lifetime, but really, honestly, that first 25 altogether. But when that brain is developing, and I love it feels so counterintuitive to a 60-year-old parent, or someone from older generations to ask questions, to pause, but it's so right on. It changes everything. And because I know my personal intent or my personal inclination is to fix, to when my child says, especially, and we've talked about this before, my child says something negative about themselves, I want to go right in and be like, no, that's not true, and affirmations, and we're not going to speak that way. And so much more valuable for me to be able to pause and let them speak and then ask some questions.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
I'm still trying to retrain
Yeah.
myself on that one.
totally. And I would just add one more thing. The beauty of parents is that you unconditionally love your child. And so
Mm,
asking the questions, but then also having that transparency statement of, hey, like, I love you and I think you're the most perfect person in the
Right.
world. And like all those things that they feel about themselves, like just combating that and being like, hey, like I just want to be honest with you and this is the truth for me. But then
Yeah.
also being curious and asking questions is
Yeah.
Yes.
so good because sometimes they need it. And a lot of the time, like people, kids, and people in general, their limiting beliefs start from their parents
Mhm.
unintentionally, but they do
Yeah,
start from
Hmm.
their parents.
of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. And then of course society adds a bunch of that on and school can add that on and you can't just deny it and push it away. You have to look at it and you have to work through it. So
Yeah.
that's where the questions are so
Yeah.
helpful.
And, neither one is working in a vacuum, just parents doing their own thing or it shouldn't be, and kids doing their own.
Right.
Marcy and I, when we first started doing these workshops, it was just for teens, right? Like we just like, oh, let's just help these kids and emotional
Yeah.
learning and all the things we were doing, meditation and yoga and all the things we were doing. And then about a year and a half into it, we thought, oh my God, we have this girlfriend who teaches, some parenting skills and helps to get kids into treatment homes and other things. So very high level. And so she came down and taught the parents and we brought them all together. It was like magic, huh, Marcy? Like
Yeah.
it,
Yeah,
we,
we really had that understanding
we
because
could,
you can teach kids all these things, but if you send them home to an environment that's not conducive to it, not conducive to taking a moment, closing your eyes, taking a breath, or wanting to eat more healthfully, or making sure like they don't understand. The parents are like, wait, what did you do to my kid? What's this weird stuff they're doing? Whereas if they learn together and they understand, oh, this is why they need to take a breath. Oh, and this is why I need to pause before I start trying to fix what they just said. And this is why now the magic happens because you've
yeah.
got your community. The family is the community and they're working together. And you said something else that Debbie and I are writing a book right now too. And one of our chapters is about healing through parenting. And you said something right at the beginning about that process of like parenting can be this healing experience where when you're helping your kids go through this stuff, it's healing them, you're healing yourself, like it's this backward and forward motion of healing, and that's amazing.
I agree. I think it's definitely really interesting to like see all of it and how it works together. And also storytelling, right? When you tell your kids stories instead of telling them what to do,
Ah,
especially if it's personal storytelling, your
Hmm.
kid is more likely to listen to you, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, don't like go to this party at night at a random person's house. Let me tell you a story. Well, like instead of like you telling them what to do, telling them a story about
yeah.
it,
Oh, I
it's a
love
different
that.
type of connection. And also,
Yeah.
storytelling is so important because the reason of stories is you really learn like the morals, right? You learn what's good and bad, but no one's telling you what it is. You're
Hmm.
Yeah.
decoding that story. And
Hmm.
that's so cool. And so if you do that with your kid, you're not only helping that connection, but you're also helping guide them in the way that you think is best. But also it's not like telling them what to do, right? They're
Yeah.
coming to their own
Wow.
decision.
I love that. And we've gotten away from that, especially in the United States. If you go to other parts of the world, like there's generations of families that all live together in community, right? And
Hmm.
so the grandmothers are telling stories and the grandfathers are telling
Yeah.
stories. And so right, you're getting this whole like mind-blowing experience by just hanging out with
Yes.
your family. Like it's incredibly
Generations of
informative.
wisdom.
Yeah.
But you
Right.
know what I think of when you say that, because I feel like I really got like especially like with the party. Well, maybe you don't go to this party by your little, like some of those stories. I got those stories. I never told those stories to my kids because I don't look that good in them. Like they're embarrassing. They're like, oh, I don't want them to know that I did that or I was drunk but hearing you say it, like it would be hard. Like that would be a really vulnerable thing for me to do. And yet how smart would that have been for me to be able to share that? And we get this idea from society that if you tell them, oh, I drank when I was a kid, or I did this, or I screwed up, that they're going to be like, oh, I never thought of doing that before, or now mom did it, I'm going to do it. And that's not it at all. When you share your vulnerability and then you share the ugliness of how that went, the dirty details, all the stuff that you don't want your kids,
Okay,
that
okay,
that goes back
okay,
to that.
Marcy, I want to hear the story now. Like you're talking about all the dirty details.
And you
let's
know
just
who
let's
spilled
just
it
put it out on a
sometimes?
podcast.
My mom would spill these sometimes. She'd be like, "Oh, that time Marcy got arrested," and I'd be like, "Mom," and then the kids would be like, "What?" And yeah, because I was trying to curate this perfect parent, like we talked about in the beginning. Like, oh, I'm the one. I did this, but it's bullshit. It's
It all
bullshit.
goes back to what she said in the very first sentence is it's about perfection. We really
Yeah,
thought that's what we were told, that you have
yeah,
to just be modeling so perfect and
yeah,
that's the only way your kid's going to learn, and it's completely the opposite. We were supposed to
yes,
be vulnerable and we were supposed to tell the silly stories, right?
yeah,
Yeah. And also, you said something, you guys both said something interesting of like vulnerability, right?
Mm,
hmm
If you're not vulnerable with your kid, then your kid's never going to be vulnerable with you because they won't know
yes,
that that's good. And
yep,
you're showing the strength by being vulnerable first, right? You have to lead by that example. I know, like,
yeah.
my mom used to be like, well, my mom always said, don't say what or like, do what I
don't,
say, but don't do.
Do what I do.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And
Yes.
it's like really funny because you're like, subconsciously, you're going to do what they do,
Yes, you're
yeah.
even if they
modeling.
say something different. Yeah.
They're
And
always
when
watching.
somebody's telling
Yes.
you, do this, don't do that, but you've seen them do it, now that's how you lose credibility, right? Where you're not
Yeah.
walking the walk. And then you've created a family environment where they can't call you out. That was not allowed in my
Mhm.
family. You didn't call your parents out on stuff. You couldn't say, wait a
Yeah.
minute, that's not right. Or, well, wait, let me ask questions about that. There were things that were just sacrosanct,
Mm.
sacrosanct, like church, like Catholicism, and like dad's right, and you were not allowed to question that unless you wanted to get your ass kicked, and or yelled at. Like the yelling was almost worse to me. I hated the yelling. So that's just that's how it was done though. And that's just when you think about it, it makes no sense. Do you want kids who are just like yes sir, or do you want kids who are like, wait a minute, I don't understand this. This doesn't make sense to me. You said this, but you've also told me that it's wrong to lie, or that like that's what we want. We want our kids to be able to think it through, and we want them to have that bravery to ask the questions, and that openness, and that willingness to hear the answers and then decide for themselves based on their
Mm.
values, which hopefully you helped to instill values that are what you want, you know,
Yeah.
and what not like you're going to give your kids your values, but when you're demonstrating these values that are principles like kindness and empathy and helping each other and valuing, um, compassion over, say, money or things like that. That's what you demonstrate, and then you want them to have that too, so they make their decisions based on that.
I agree.
Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness. We are almost that time. So a
Yeah.
couple
See, I told
things.
you that was going to happen.
I know
We're
we're
gonna
gonna
be
want
all
to
into it, and
know
then it's like we
like
run out of time.
how do you get to your workshops, how do you get to your podcast? But I want you to
Oh
just
yes.
give some parents like four basic things to do, or maybe it's the top three, or like, communication. Like, tell us from your experience as a teenager, what if, if you could tell your parents, like, this is what I really need, what would you tell them?
I think the number one thing is listen to me and don't try to fix me.
Mm,
Mhm.
And that really goes into the strategy of like, well, when you are talking to somebody and this can be in any relationship, asking the question after they like talk to you of like, do you want to be heard, helped, or held? And sure,
Yes.
it'd definitely be good if the person who's venting would say that in the beginning, but if they're at such a high energy state, you probably can't expect them to do that. And
Yeah.
most of the time, I want it to be heard, right?
yes.
And a lot of kids just want to be helped. And
Yeah.
even in like feminine and masculine relationships or like romantic relationships, a lot of the times the guy's gonna want to fix whatever
Yeah.
the
I
like
was
the
gonna say
girl's going through.
this is
Yeah.
appropriate for my husband. Yes.
Yeah.
And mine. He's
Yes.
65 and he still does that. Just
Yeah.
wants to
Yeah.
jump in.
And it's
Yeah.
because he like loves you so much, but
Yes.
you just want to be heard. And
Yes.
it's so like it's so just like simple, but it's so hard to practice. And that's probably like the
Yeah.
first thing I would say.
I
Wow.
love that. And like you say, simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We've talked about that before, asking the question, what do you need from me right now? So I
Yeah.
love that you're giving choices. You need to be heard or held or helped, or, so because then people have to stop and think about it. Well, what do I want right now? Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
actually I could use a hug, or no, just listen. I got some things to say, or yeah, I need a solution. I need an idea of what's next.
Yeah, and if you do that and you start young, then they're gonna know when they're like doing this over and over again, they're gonna know
Mm,
exactly what they need. So in relationships, they're gonna be like, I just need to be heard. Or they
yeah.
can be like, if somebody's venting to them, be like, how can I help you? Or be
Yes.
like, I can tell that you don't want my advice right now. I'm just gonna listen here. Let me know
Yeah,
if you need
exactly.
anything else.
Normalize saying the thing, like being super clear. Clear is kind, like Brene Brown says. Be clear about what it is that you need, and then also that what you're hearing, and that's that what I think you're saying is, and letting people then say, no, that's not what I'm saying. Like that way of communicating is fantastic and so much
Mhm.
more helpful.
So
Totally.
how do people find you and how
Yes.
do they sign up for your workshops?
Yes. So my website is cloud9go.com. So that's the number nine. And right now we have a wait list and I'm hosting testing workshops
Good for
because
you.
I want to make sure that it's as good as possible. So I just did one, I got a bunch of feedback, and I'm going to do it again.
Mm.
And then, yeah, you can find me on Instagram with cloud9go.com. Same thing, the number nine. And yeah, those are my two main platforms. So thanks so much.
Okay.
And I just want to clarify, these workshops, you're doing them online, right? So where no
Yes.
matter where people are. That's amazing.
Yeah. I think it's great because then it's accessible, it's
Yeah.
easier, and then I do want to do in-person workshops, but starting
Sure.
online will be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sonia, this is fantastic. I know we want to have you back. There's so many more things to explore, but I hope some people will reach out and find some answers here. I know if they don't hear anything else, just that one thing about asking that question in families and in all relationships, even with a stranger who's having a breakdown, what can I do for you?
Yeah.
So powerful.
You're amazing. Keep up the good work.
Thank you guys. I enjoyed this.
And now for your core mental health break. This is your opportunity to take a moment to support your mental wellness, your peace of mind, your own ease and grace. Take some time every day to support your mental health. You deserve it, and it matters.
Today we're going to journal, and here is your journaling prompt. If I could go anywhere in the world, I would go. Take a few moments, journal about where you would go, feel it, create it. Really think about what would serve you and uplift you. If I could go anywhere in the world, I would go. Enjoy your journaling.
Thanks for listening to the Warrior Parent Podcast, which is a production of our nonprofit, Cour Experience, who also creates and distributes Cour tools. You can find us at courexperience.org. Make sure you join us next week for another informative conversation to help you and your family show up mindfully, purposefully, and joyfully with each other and in your community.
Our Core Tools platform consists of a number of proven tools and techniques that are designed to reduce stress, anxiety, and overwhelm in spite of what's going on in your world. We want to thank Samuel Hale, LLC, for sponsoring this podcast. Technical and marketing support comes from Inspire Your Brand. Our podcast editor is Justin Beeden. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, the producers, or the financial supporters. I'm Debbie DiManno.
And I'm Marci Mitchell. Thanks for listening. If you resonate with the idea of creating a community to help support kids and families, won't you join us by following the podcast and sharing this episode? You can even write a review. It truly does take a village, and we appreciate you.